How you doing, guys? Welcome to another episode of Blade Talk with Scab and Joe. Thank you for joining us here today. We've been actually talking about this particular video for a little while. We wanted to get into blade steels, whether it be EDCs, whether it be buoys, whether it be sword steel. They all run along the same premises for the most part. Thank you. Also, I did a live last night and got a lot of feedback as far as what your thoughts are, and especially Choirboyz Cutlery Scab put out a community post last night, and a lot of people really commented and put a lot of good feedback in there. But obviously, before we get started with any of our videos, guys, we try to grow awareness on this channel for 22 a day. You see I'm wearing the shirt, okay, from the Valhalla Project. Actually, which side is it? It's this side here. And my bracelets. So 22 veterans a day take their own lives, guys. It's a horrible statistic. We can only grow awareness in this channel. And a message to all our vets. Vets, we love you. There's a place for you here. And seek help if you need it. Number for some help is in the description. So, Scab, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Doing good. I enjoyed the live last night. I want to commend you on the last few you've done, man. They seem to be relaxed. They're fun. I think some of it, too, is the time you're doing them. Right. It's more that, relaxed. Everybody, I know Megatron enjoyed it, and it was good. That might have been one of your biggest or more involved ones as far as people. What do you think?
As far as the one that was just posted? Yeah,
like people in the room.
Yeah, there was a lot of people in the room. I think it was a good subject as well, in terms of everyone has. I mean, the largest feedback I was getting was the fact that people just are not sure. They don't know because there are most people, and we're going with Rusty Knife Lover, Timbo. These are guys that live with their knives and they have hundreds of knives,
and they know their shit.
Yeah, and they know their stuff, but there's so many different steels that are coming out every day that it's just so hard to keep up.
Yeah.
As far as what the properties are, what their purposes are. So it's kind of a learning curve, I think, for everyone, including myself. I mean, I by no means know exactly what each steel is supposed to be or not supposed to be, and I just like I had a conversation with you before. The Civivi knife that I'm trying to get reviewed has a steel that I've never heard of before.
So which one is that? What's the steel on that?
The Elementum. You know what? I forget exactly what it was, but it was a steel that I'd never heard of before.
Right. Well, let me say this too. Timbo and Rusty Knife Lover actually are two guys. Timbo 437 has his own channel. Shout out to him. Rusty Knife Lover is huge in the community, big supporter of the community. He knows his shit. So those two are too good to go to. Two good ones to go to and ask questions. They're really knowledgeable. I am a novice at best, and let me say this to everyone up front. We know there's a difference in toughness and hardness. I don't know what the damn difference is. So terminology, just please bear with us. We wanted to talk about a couple things, and I want to kind of open this up. The question hit me some last night, but I wanted to ask you, being a sword guy and a knife guy, you like both. Is there a particular steel that you have in a sword and in a knife that you really like? Like, just throw it like 1095. Is there one, though, that you really like that translates well to both?
In generally speaking, in terms of katana, the sword, my go-to steel, upon ordering or looking at different manufacturers and all that, is T10 or 1095. A lot of people think that T10, 1095 are very similar. There are similar properties. There's something they do differently with the T10 that make it a little bit stronger. But for the most part, those are the two steels that I go to. Now, also depends on the manufacturer, because now if I'm dealing with if I'm dealing with Hanwei, okay, with their swords, they have particular steels that they really excel at. So now I tout my Hanwei Practical Excel so much. It has a 1566. It's technically a spring steel, but there's a lot of magnesium in the steel to make it, to give it that elasticity and also that toughness and hardness. Okay, so it kind of my go-to steel is always T10 and 1095, but it depends on also the manufacturer of the sword that I'm dealing with and what they excel on. So my views would change depending on how well they excel with certain steels. So that's the conundrum there. Because like, all right, I love T10, but if I love this sword from Hanwei, they do really well with this 1566 steel. You know, it's a tough blade. You know, it doesn't take damage, keeps an edge. So it really all depends on the manufacturer, how they heat temper it, and how they work with certain steels.
Yeah.
So my go-to T10 1095, but it changes according to who I'm shopping with.
And that will be, but so there's no knives made in T10, right? I know 1095. Yeah, there's a ton. I got a ton of them.
Not that I know of, and a lot of people last night had asked me, you know, I wish they would make a sword out of like SV30 or something like that. I'm like, would be great, but I don't think the properties of that steel, being more of like a stainless steel, you can't make a long blade out of that steel because it'll break.
Gotcha.
So there's certain properties that you can't, like with that particular steel, I don't think you could do anything longer than like a 9-inch blade, because a sword that large, it's going to crack in half. It's not going to hold its edge. It's not going to hold its form. So that's why I think they go. Yeah, I don't think that they can. So I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I've read. You know, in terms of types of stainless steel should not be made into swords or can't be made into swords. Yeah. You know, but T10 in terms of a knife, I haven't heard of it. Okay. I don't know if you have.
No, I haven't. 1095, obviously, I've got a ton of them. I do want to say this too. When you mentioned spring steel, it leads me to a quick shout out, and that's Dan over at Blind Owl Bushcraft. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Dan, subscribe. He does a wonderful job. He's out there in the jungle of the Philippines living it. He puts out a ton of stuff. Dan's an awesome dude. Subscribe to him. I mentioned that because he did a video yesterday where he was in the market in the Philippines and going through. And there's a ton of knives there that they've made out of leaf springs. Right. Razor sharp, you know, the cane knives and all of this. And there was just table after table of knives and parangs and machetes and barongs made out of leaf spring. So my point to that is this. No matter if you like CPM 3V, 1095, 420HC, most of it, guys, is personal preference. If you can sharpen it up, it'll cut. So, again, right off the rip, you know, is one better than the other? I truly do not know. I can speak on, I've got probably 8 or 9 knives that I can put my hands on right now, and I did this on purpose, all different steels.
Right.
I asked a bunch of knife reviewers on Instagram what theirs were. So, you know, we know that. I know that one big steel, Joe, that everybody likes a lot of knives, and this is just the cold steel AK-47, but this is in CTS XHP. And a lot of people will tell you, and I'm one of those included, this is the best steel, cold steel ever used. I don't know. I've read, and all I can go by on what I've read, but what I've read is they couldn't get it in enough quantities to continue just mass production. That's why they went to a S35VN. Yes. But I've got 3 or 4 of these in the CTS XHP. CTS XHP.
Okay.
That I won't let go.
Okay.
Because of the steel. This is one Mikey sharpened up. It's razor sharp. I've used it a bunch. And that's one of the properties, from my understanding and experience, is it holds an edge forever. And let me ask you, because this is a question that I get some, what are the properties that you look for in a steel? People have all kinds. What are like 2 or 3 of your that are must-haves? And I mean by that, edge retention, sharpening ability, toughness, etc. Now, what are like 2 or 3 properties that are just must-haves in your steel?
Are we saying kind of in general across the board?
Yeah.
In general across the board? Well, if I have to speak in general across the board, if I'm speaking of swords, I would say swords and knives. I would say probably in general across the board. I definitely want something that's going to keep the edge. something that has to hold an edge. Okay, because I don't want to be, especially when it comes to swords. I don't want to have to be worrying about reprofiling or sharpening an edge after every cut. So it has to hold an edge, and that's why I try to steer towards T10 or 1095. Sometimes with the spring steels, they're a little bit more resilient in terms of bad cuts. They take a bend and bend back. They don't take the bend and kind of stay in the bend. And there's certain properties of spring steel that are fantastic, but certain spring steels don't hold an edge as long as a T10 can. Gotcha. So edge retention is very, very important to me. And just, overall, like hardness and toughness of the blade, to not have to worry about breakage. I mean, those are probably, me personally, my biggest, largest, my most important factors that I look for in my blades. Now, in terms of knives, it depends what I'm using it for. Like if I basically take this, which is filthy because I use it every day. If I take this Finwolf, okay, it's an Aus 8. It's an Aus 8 steel. Now, this is not considered some of the best steel in the world. I'm not, putting this thing through logs or anything like that. But it does hold an edge. But I know that basically, if I need to sharpen this, it's very easy to sharpen as well.
That was going to be my other question. Is that one of your, some people don't care, but ease of sharpening, that was what I was going to ask. Is that one?
That is one of my, ease of sharpness is definitely very, very important to me. But listen, if you're talking about the steel you were just talking about with that cold steel knife, if it's going to hold an edge for that long, I won't mind having to sharpen it and having the edge, last a little bit longer, rather than taking my Finwolf and feeling like after I cut, a dozen cardboard boxes, I have to feel like, I really need to keep up on the stropping all the time and possibly reprofile. That could be kind of annoying at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now that was kind of where I wanted you to go with it. The other thing is I showed you the CTS XHP.
Yeah.
Also, let me say this too. I hate Aus 8 because of one bad experience. And I know you're not supposed to do that. And I've had a couple of good experiences since then. And that leads me into heat treat. Heat treating a blade is monstrous. And there's so many factors in building a knife that are monstrous. But heat treat plays into that. And I had one cold steel. I think it was OSP. It was like a sub hilt that I loved the aesthetic of. It was double edged and I couldn't sharpen it for shit. And I've had a Kisley R, a Russian made Aus 8 that went razor sharp. So just preconceived, like I've heard I know Aus 10, people are back and forth on that. And a lot of cold steels, big folders are in Aus 10. And I like that. But when we talk about edge retention, another one is this S90V, the Medford in S90V. Edge retention is huge with it. Now, it's not really known for sharpening. But like you said, if it takes a few extra minutes, big deal. If I can hold my edge a little longer, that's what I'm going to do. A couple of things I look for while you're getting your papers there. I look for edge retention, ease of sharpening. Now, when I say ease of sharpening, I look at that more. I like to sharpen knives. I'm learning how to do it. It is relaxing. When I talk ease of sharpening, I'm talking about maybe something in the field or in the woods if you had to on the go.
Right. To bring something with you and be able to just give it an edge if you need it.
That mythical emergency scenario we all, as knife people and sword people and woods people want to imagine is going to happen. That's something that has to be considered, or in reality, if you're out on a week-long camping trip, you want to take something that you can sharpen pretty quick with a rock pretty quick, So those are just factors. And guys, if y'all have things that you look for in blades and knives, put them in the comments. What do you look for in a knife? Is it edge retention? Is it ease of sharpening? Is it toughness? Is it hardness? Is it durability? Put that in the comments. Give us some lists of things that you look for in a knife. Those will be super interesting to see. The
research has a lot to do with it, because after I I printed out a couple of papers, which I've been talking about for a while now. And research has a lot to do with it, because if you know the elements that go into making the steel that you have, you know exactly what to look for. And if you're able to, let's just say you're shopping for a specific knife and you look up the properties of the knife and see what's included, there's a couple different factors. I mean, iron is obviously always your main ingredient to make up steel. Without it being iron, it's not metal. You have, carbon is obviously a critical factor in terms of your hardening element. Then you have something like cobalt. It adds strength to the blade. Magnesium is important because it hardens the blade, but it also makes it brittle if added in high quantities. So if you're looking at something with a high magnesium content in the steel, especially in swords, it may actually make it brittle. Then you got nickel, which adds overall toughness to the blade. Tungsten increases the wear resistance. So something with a high tungsten level, which I think that steel that you're talking about there probably has a high tungsten level, because it basically fights against the wear resistance, on the metal.
Yeah.
And then there's vanadium, which increases wear resistance and makes the blade harder. So there's a lot of elements that they put into stainless steel that will interpret how well they perform. So I think it's a lot of little knowledge. Steel. I'm sorry?
I said stainless simply starts out as carbon, and they cook, and that's important to know too. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, like I said last night, steel is not a natural substance. Steel is man-made. Okay? Iron is iron is on the periodic table. Steel is not on the periodic table. Steel is something that human hands concoct, mix a couple of things together like a mixing bowl, basically, and they come up with certain properties and certain strengths in their steels.
Yeah. Now, one thing to cover too, I think there's not confusion, but there's a company in Italy, Sandrin. I did a review of the Sandrin Torino. Their blade is tungsten carbide. It is not a steel. That is the blade. It's not a type. It's tungsten carbide is the blade. Okay. And I'm going to be honest. It seemed to be very tough. It was razor sharp, and I know that I was the third reviewer or fourth, and I know Rusty used it, and that thing was still sharp as shit. And I just send it on to a kid, Knife Dude, a young man that's going to do some testing. He's 15 or 16, really, really knowledgeable. Check him out too. He's really good, articulate kid, young man. But I sent it on to him, and I'm interested to see how sharp it still is. But that tungsten and that's something new,
right?
And I'll say that, like in working at Home Depot or a warehouse or something, that would probably be the blade I'd want to carry. It wasn't very big. It was very, very light, but razor sharp and stayed that. And like you said, you don't want to cut 5 boxes of cardboard and have to. If I did that a night, you could pack it in.
Right.
I mean, I cut 5 pieces of cardboard within the first 2 seconds of work, So I think those are things that you have to consider. What I know you've got a couple. The 2 swords behind you, I'm going to assume are T10.
Well, that's the thing. The 2 swords behind me are actually Hanway's.
Okay.
And the Practical XL, which is at the bottom, is that 1566 spring steel.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, and the one on the top is also a type of spring steel. It's the Hanway Raptor.
Okay.
But they do a great job with them. I mean, spring steel is not my go-to steel,
right?
In general, but if you have a company like Hanway that they excel in that type of steel, then I'll go with it. So, I mean, I don't really have I'm not I don't have blinders on. You can't have blinders on. You got to accept the company and what the company offers and how well they do with the steel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's about how they manage it and how they heat temper it. One very important factor of conversation that came up last night in my life was the fact that we were talking about cheaper budget quality carbon steels like 1060, 1045. Now, these are considered softer, not as hard as the better 1095 and T10 steels. But if you have a Smith in Langquan, China, wherever the smith is making the steel, if they specialize in working with this steel and they got it down pat, you could have a very strong blade. So it's not always about the steel guys. It's about the hands of the craftsman or reputation of the company that works with this steel. Prime example, Buck Knives. Now, Buck Knives uses what? The 420C, I believe it is.
They use a couple. They're going into S35VN some, but yeah, 428C. 428C is their go-to. They're all about the heat treat. You can't have a discussion about Buck Knives or heat treat without mentioning Buck. And I'm actually scrolling through their website now, and they put a lot of that information on their front page. I mean, that's how strongly they feel about their heat treat.
Right.
The
Buck
and that's what makes them that makes them them.
Right. Now the Buck 119, what steel does that have?
Mine's got 420HC.
Okay. Now, if you had to ask people in general, 428, that's particular steel, what would be their opinion of that steel without knowing it's coming from Buck or anything like that?
Well, it's a rudimentary steel. And a lot of people roll their eyes or whatever.
Right.
A lot of these steels, guys, that are coming along now are because people got tired of working with the 420HC. It's not because they didn't work. They most certainly work. They work incredibly well. I've got a 119 that'll cut you in half right now, and it's 420, and it's because of a guy named Paul Boss, B-O-S, Paul Boss.
Paul Boss.
He is, and usually if you say 420 and Paul Boss, anybody that has any common sense or knows anything about knives, they're gonna, if you brought me a knife, you could say, Scab, this knife, man, I bought it for $3 at the flea market, and I'd be like, oh, okay, Paul Boss heat treated it. I'll give you 10 for it.
Wow.
That's going to last. I mean, Paul Boss is the man, and there's no arguing that. There's death, taxes, and Paul Boss.
Right.
Now, having said that, going along with what we're going with, I was asked, Zeke Manacho, or Machete, everybody calls him Machete, or Zeke. He is a designer for Work Tough Gear. And I've been reviewing some of his knives, and I swear I walked in here with the damn knife. Here it is. Now, this is a new knife. This is a new steel they're trying out. And I wanted to bring it up because I just oiled this thing up. But this is Bowler K340. This is a new steel. It's a Bowler K340. So, and he asked me.
Is that a Kydex sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard the click. That's nice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, scout carry, which I look real good doing a scout carry. But this Bowler K340, he asked me to, he wants my opinion on the edge retention. I've done nothing to it. It's still pretty damn sharp. And everybody seen the review the other day. But here's the deal. What I'm going to do, Joe, and that's no stropping. That's
out of the box.
Well, this is after a review.
Okay.
And that's after batoning it and cutting a tire. Now, I'll do another month's worth of carry on it. It's my truck knife right now. But Work Tough Gear's heat treat so far has been impeccable. They do SK85. They heat treat it between 56 and 58. And I'm going to tell you, I have had no problems with Work Tough Gear in their SK85. And the K340, which is new, seems to be going well too. So if a company has their heat treat down, just like the one I reviewed the other day, the Billy Waugh demo in M390 from Lion Steel, dude, that is just amazing. It's amazing what a heat treat and what quality brings.
Talk to me about Lion Steel. I mean, I hear so much. I have never particularly had an experience personally with Lion Steel. I hear you, testing and looking at knives and talking about knives from Italy with the Lion Steel. Talk to us a little bit about Lion Steel and what makes it great.
I love Lion Steel. I love Italian knives.
Right.
I always have. I like the look, the aesthetic, all of that. And listen, I buy American when I can. I've got 6 knives right here in front of me.
Right.
And 5 of them are American made. I've got my Italian knife over here. I just like Italian made knives. And I'll say this about Lion Steel and that Billy Waugh demo in particular. The tolerances were spot on, no wobble, no blade play. Again, the proof's in the pudding. And I review knives a little differently than most reviewers do. It's because I'm learning. This is a growing chapter. There are a lot of guys who can show you a knife and articulate everything about that knife very well. I'm not there yet, so I'll show you. Everything I did with that knife, I can go pull it out of the box because I'm sending it back to DJ. I can go pull it out of the box right now, do that review again without stropping, without doing anything, and it'll hold up the same.
And you'll have the same results.
Same result. And again, it's because now it's the M390. I kind of like it. And it's their heat treat, kind of like it. And it's just Lion Steel, and it's a Bill Harsey design. Right. So I think, now that's not to say a knife has to be super expensive. Bucks prove that. I carry this right here every day of my life. This Buck 110. That's 420 HC right there.
Right.
And I believe it's ebony wood. Where the hell's the camera?
Yeah.
I believe it's ebony wood scales. I believe that's what Isaac told me. Isaac the noob gave me this. I carry this every damn day of my life. And it's 420 HC, Paul Boss heat treated. Awesome. And it's American made. But I recommend everybody carrying one of these or having one of these. It's just a little bit of nostalgia too,
Exactly. And because they work with that steel so well and their heat treatment is so spot on, you will never have an issue with that.
Oh, and if you do, they'll take it back and fix it.
And the customer service is key.
Yeah.
It's definitely key. I found something. We were talking about the difference between hardness and toughness. Okay?
Yes.
So I just want to read off some it's an article I have here. It's about characteristics of quality knife steel. Okay. So now the topic is hardness and toughness. So this is what they're saying about this. Hardness and toughness may sound like the same thing, and though they are dependent on one another, they aren't necessarily the same. To understand hardness in steel, you should familiarize yourself with the Rockwell hardness scale, which is used to classify hardness in steel, as we know. Very high carbon steel combined with elements like magnesium will make the steel very hard yet brittle. That's why some rigid knives are also brittle and can chip and break easily. The blade's toughness is its resistance to chipping, cracking, and breaking from impacts and torsion pressure. Elements that rank mid-range of the Mohs scale of mineral hardness, like nickel. So there's your difference. Between hardness and toughness. Yeah. Resistance to chipping. Okay, is what the blade's toughness is. The hardness is the Rockwell hardness scale.
Right. Okay. And that hardness too, you got to be careful because, like I said, with that SK85, I've read where a lot of companies try to jack that heat treat up to 60 or better. It makes the blade a little more brittle, whereas that 56 to 58, I found, and I think what Work Tough Gears found more importantly, a really, really comfortable zone there where the knife's got enough hardness and enough toughness. It's not brittle at all. Everybody, you've seen where I've slammed up and down on it with a 4-inch tree.
Right.
There are some knives I think if a knife is too hard, it becomes brittle. I think that's the key there. I don't think you can have a knife that's too tough. Right. If that makes sense. You can have a knife that's too hard, but you can't have one that's too tough.
Yeah, and it really does have to do with how much magnesium is put into the steel. If they find the right balance of putting magnesium into the steel, you'll find the right balance between the hardness and toughness.
Right.
But listen, that's why we watch Choirboyz Cutlery, and that's why we need to see the knives tested, because we can speak about all of these great steels and how well they look on paper, but if you don't see them tested and see them go, you put it through its paces and seeing how after putting it through its paces, how the knife is holding its own and how it can still cut paper. That's what makes, that's what basically sells you on a knife and makes you understand really what the knife is capable of rather than just reading it on paper.
Right.
So
I will say this, in the messages on that post, there were a couple guys, that made the statement that they don't use hard use, that, their knives are not hard use. So steels for them aren't a big thing. It's more about the aesthetics. And I understand that. I actually asked Advanced Knife Pro what his three were. And he said, man, I'm really not a steel guy. And I think he's a little more like me. He says, as long as I can sharpen it up,
right.
I'm good. There was one he mentioned that he liked because it didn't rust, and it's kind of cool to see. I asked Casey from Knives Fast and Kevin from Lefty's EDC and Big Red. And I asked a lot of guys, and it's interesting to see the different answers you get. And a lot of guys are like me that I don't really care as long as you can sharpen it up. Now, there is a difference. I understand that. And I have my 5160, 1095. I like the carbon steels.
Right.
I just do. What is it? 52-100? What is that?
That's a tool steel.
Yeah. Timbo 437, I think, mentioned he liked tool steels.
Yes.
I really, really do too. I really like the tool steel a lot. I've got a couple knives in those. And I know I think I've got, if I can put my hands on, I tried to make it to where I had hands where I could put hands on just about whatever I wanted to. Here it is. Here's the cold steel. I believe the Recon Scout, just kind of a different looking. It's a bigger knife. Now this one is a 01 high carbon, and I do like the 01. I will say that. It's a great steel. This one's held its edge pretty damn good. So I like the tool steels as well. I think it just comes down to personal preference. And how many knives do you have around you?
Before I even get into that, 52-100 steel classified. This steel is diverse and can be used for multiple knife applications, kitchen or outdoor. It is hard, yet wear and corrosion resistant. It can be pounded down to a blade with an exceptionally thin edge. There's your 52-100.
Yeah, and I like it. But my question was going to be, how many knives do you have around you, and what are the different steels on them?
Okay, so what I have in front of me, I showed you the Ors 8,
right?
Ors 8 steel for the Finn Wolf, which I do love this knife. I really do. And it goes with the price too. Ors 8 steel is very cheap to make and sell. Yeah. So that's it. This is a $40 little pocket knife, and it's fine. It goes with the price category.
It's a damn good pocket knife.
Yeah,
I gave mine to I think Paul Myers. We traded 8010,
and that's S35 VN. Okay, yeah. I love this blade. I mean, I don't need to sharpen this thing at all. I put a profile on it when I first got it to get it to the sharp edge I wanted to. I strop it from time to time. I don't need to do anything with it.
I love
it. It's a great steel. I mean, is it a testament for the steel, or is it? The question is it a testament for the steel, or is it credit to Cold Steel working with the steel?
You can't give credit to Cold Steel for working with the steel because they have so many different manufacturers. That is something I wanted to touch on. Everybody knows I love Cold Steel, and I do. But it's not like they have one central location with one manufacturer. That's why I think some of the Cold Steel stuff is up and down.
Right.
The big brother of the 8010 is the Formax. This is the Italian-made Formax. I think this is the 20 CV. Yeah, CPM 20 CV. And it's the big brother of the 8010, and it's the same way. Now I sent this one to DJ Horn, and he got it back in shape for me and got it ready. But I do like the 20 CV. I mean, I like the steel, but I've just, since it's been back, I've simply stropped it a time or two.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
That blade, Scab. I know that you attempted to sharpen it. I know you weren't happy with the results of sharpening it. But how hard was it for you to sharpen that blade?
Okay, here's the deal. I do not have the work sharp with the Ken Onion.
Okay.
I'm changing that. I digged up a lot of knives, and
So you're using the blade guide.
I did a few times, on this one, and I will never. And here's the other reason why on that one, JR had sent me that camp knife that I showed you, or field knife that I showed you, as a birthday present. Well, in it, I guess Work Tough Gear had put a little stone. So I've just been using the stone. But if you look, a lot of cold steel with their thumb studs, you about have to have a jackhammer to get them out. Now, somebody says, "Oh, get them out easy." I'm sure you do. But there are a bunch of them that are really tough. And if you can't freehand or use your Ken Onion work sharp, I wouldn't use a regular work sharp to pull these through, because what happens is, the hell's the camera? What happens is, see that right there where it's a little, okay. DJ went back in and he did not reprofile anything. He fixed everything. But right there wasn't a lot he could do, because that Work Tough had taken out so much metal. And that's something you need to be careful of. And that's a mistake that I made, using too coarse a grit and holding it there a little long. So it wasn't so much that it was hard to sharpen, Joe. I got it pretty sharp. It's that I digged up the point, and that's
okay.
Because the work sharp will get it sharp. People say, "Oh, yes, it'll get it sharp." I mean, I've proven it'll get it sharp, but at what cost?
Right.
That's what I had to ask myself and be honest with myself. And I'm now on fixed blades. I don't have that problem for whatever. I don't know why. But on fixed blades, it's just not that big of an issue. I'm still learning to sharpen my fixed blades, and I'm coming along well, but that just a little sidetrack there. But real quick, I wanted to go over just a few things, and I don't know if any of you guys out there have a collection with just one steel, let us know. I don't think that's going to be the case. I can tell you, my guy, Dale King, one of my real good friends, matter of fact, he did last Thanksgiving. He sat down with me at my mom and dad's, and we looked over his Spyderco collection. I think he collects, I want to say PM3s or PM2s. Spyderco has about 20 something different steels that they make the Spyderco PM2 in, honestly. But real quick, just to show y'all a couple, this one is the Emerson Vindicator. It's CM154. I like this one. This is a chisel grind. Some people don't like that. And I think that's why Ernie went with the 154, because it is a tough, hard steel, but chisel grind. Here's speak of the devil, Spyderco. And this is the CPM S30V. Anytime you get into the powdered metals, guys, those are the more specialty metals. There's that one. Here's the S90V, the Medford.
Oh, the Medford is S90V.
Yeah. Okay. I got
superior edge attention, but it can be. Okay, this is what they said.
Sharpen.
Oh, you just said it. I didn't even say it. The steel has superior edge retention, but it can be almost impossible to sharpen due to its ridiculous hardness.
Yeah.
You typically only find it on custom-made knives, and it has a carbon content of about 2.3%.
Yeah.
2.30%.
And it'll be going to, I'll be sending that one to DJ before long to give the spa treatment and fix, because it is. But now, once you get an edge on the damn thing,
it's going to stay.
It's going to stay.
So these are things that we have to, that I guess the consumer has to know.
Yeah.
Has to realize.
Yeah. I mean, don't just look at a knife and go, "Ooh, that's pretty." I mean, you can if you got the money, but just take a minute. If you're like a guy like Rusty or Timbo or some of these other guys that know your stuff, know what it's going to do, know how to sharpen it, dude, by all means.
Right.
But, and I will say this, in purchasing a knife, steel for me does play a role, not because I'm a steel snob, but I want to make sure that whatever it is, I can sharpen it, I can manage it, and I look at edge retention because I'm like you. I don't want to cut 3 boxes and be over there with a stone every 5 minutes.
Right.
So edge retention for me is an important one.
One particular knife I want to highlight, if I can find it, okay, and there's a cost factor that a lot of these companies try to adhere to, so they're able to sell the knives. Okay, so now you have my Voyager here, which has the AUS 10A steel.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this Voyager, I think it's under $100, if I'm not mistaken, right? This the XL. If this blade had to be made of SV30 or one of the better steels, how much you think they would have to sell this knife?
Probably 110, 120.
I'm thinking a little bit more than that, but let's just say it won't be as cost effective, with a blade this size with that type of steel. So they use certain steels to be able to make them affordable to certain people.
But now remember, Cold Steel has several knives under $100 with S35VN. Not huge blades, but they have the code 4.
Shorter blades.
They have, it's a 3-inch blade. Cold Steel doesn't make, they're not going to make they've got a couple. But, and that goes to another point. If Cold Steel can make a knife, that's got a 3.5 inch blade, grippy G10, triad lock, and all that under $100 with S35VN, well, everybody else can too. Okay. And I'll say this: while I did have the one Cold Steel knife with a heat treat that I hated, AUS 8. You have to bear in mind I've probably had over 90 pieces of Cold Steel, so 1 out of 90 ain't bad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
AUS 10 and AUS 10 I like. As much as I don't like AUS 8 is how much I like AUS 10, and I'll catch flack for it. But guys, I'm not saying it's bad. And please, I want to say that too up front with everybody. I don't. When I give an opinion on a knife review, it's my opinion of the knife. I'm not trashing the knife. I'm not trashing the manufacturer. I'm not trashing people that like it. That does no good. That's stupid, because knives are so subjective, and everybody's got a certain opinion. That just alienates. So please understand, when I say I don't like something, that doesn't mean it ain't good. It just means it's not good for me.
I think that should go into play with all of us guys in this community that receive these knives, whether they be gifted, whether they be given to them for reviews, whether they be purchased from their own wallets. There shouldn't be any bias towards anything. And whatever we review it really should be taken subjectively as our own opinion. So it's not something that is listen, I don't think any of us are licensed, metallurgists or licensed to basically do this thing. So it always has to be taken as our opinion for the most part. But a lot of people are basically trashing the AUS, the AUS series of knives, because they're made in Japan. But let me just tell you what they're all about. They're made in Japan. It says the improvement over AUS series, over the 400 series, is the addition of vanadium. That's actually what they add into the AUS series steels to make it better, which improves wear resistance and provides excellent toughness. This is also reportedly makes the steel easier to sharpen. That is the biggest reason why AUS steels are, pretty good, and they're very manageable. That's what.
Yeah, and that's AUS 10.
AUS 10. I love AUS 10. I really do like AUS 10.
I do too.
I love my Voyager. Then you ask me what else I have in front of me. This is a Cold Steel leatherneck Tonto.
See, yeah.
Okay. This is the German D2.
How has that held up for you?
It's held up okay, but I do want to. I've been stropping it, but I think I'm going to reprofile it. I think when I first got out of the box, it was a little bit sharper, but after using it, I think I'm going to have to reprofile or maybe put on some fine belts. But for the most part, it's very strong. I mean, it's a very strong blade. I mean, I haven't really chopped with it. I think I will, for argument's sake. But after I actually put another edge on it, I think I'm going to probably use this for some feather staking. I'm going to probably do some Fatwood Friday. I'm going to use this knife.
Sharpen it up.
I love it.
Sharpen it up and chop with it. I had that same knife except the clip point.
Clip point.
Because I love the K-bar style. I'm a huge fan of that. I've got a couple K-bars. I'll always have K-bar.
Right.
And I got that cold steel one because it was a big, thick D2. Mine chipped a bunch. I had a lot of chipping on mine.
Chipping, really? Okay.
A lot on mine. But now, we talked about D2 at the beginning. I've got no real problem with D2. I kind of like D2. I know there's a lot of folks who really like it.
That's Boker's D2,
yeah. So I've got a bunch of I've got this one right here, little off grid. My guy Kurt sent over to me to test, and it's D2. I had made a comment to Joe before we started about D2. I like D2, but there's different kinds of D2. That's something I think has to be brought up. Different people make it. And again, I'm no expert. I think the knife that I had from Cold Steel, that Cold Steel leather neck, I love the look. I love the aesthetic. It was big. It was heavy. It was all of those things. But I just don't know that the heat treat was spot on because it chipped left and right. And I've had other D2 knives that not one chip, not one ding, not one donk, nothing.
So you know what? I'll experiment with mine. And if mine holds up, then maybe you just had a big heat-treated knife. Because this is considered German D2. I don't know what the hell that means, but it's German D2.
Right. That's what mine was. That's what mine was.
I can't say what that is. I love the steels that K-Bar uses, especially with my modified.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about getting it spot on. Yeah. They're spot on.
That's 1095 Crow Van.
Yes.
Now, that is not 1095. It's 1095 Crow Van.
Crow Van, yes.
And there is a difference.
Right.
And I know that just from doing a little bit of research, the 1095 Crow Van, there's an old steel company, Sharon Steel, up there from near you, I think, up in New York, Pennsylvania, right in there.
Yep.
That's just an old steel formula from them. And K-Bar has their blades spot on, heat treat spot on, 99 times out of 10, 99 out of 100, they're just spot on perfect. But that's that 1095 Crow Van. And it's a great steel.
Yes.
I think 420HC, I think 1095, I think a lot of your older stuff, they made knives for decades out of that shit. People just wanted different things, and you've got guys coming along, and started the powdered stuff. And thank God they did. It gives us choices.
Yes, it gives us choices. There's so many choices that it's actually daunting.
Yeah.
to that it's hard to keep up with the amount of choices that are out there.
Here's one I wanted to show you, Joe. This is the Cold Steel Frenzy.
Yep.
S35 VN, micarta handles. Here, one thing that threw me off, there's a Frenzy 1, 2, and 3. Okay? The only difference is the color of the handle.
Okay.
But
still the same?
This is S35 VN. Another one DJ had to fix for me. But I think this retails at about 120.
Right.
That's
how long is that blade? That's probably like a 6?
5.5 or 6.
Yeah.
Most of Cold Steel's long blades are 5.5. I was thinking 6, but they're 5.5, and then they'll do a 6 or 7 inch handle, which I love.
Right.
And Lynn's always talking about reach. Well, okay. There's just something about this knife, man. If you haven't carried one of these, it's not big, it's not cumbersome, it's very slim in pocket. And just speaking on a couple things, Cold Steel, a lot of people that trash the big knives have never once in their life carried them. Never once.
Right.
Until you carry one like that Voyager. You put it in your pocket, it carries, doesn't it?
It's crazy to say, this knife, okay, look at the difference. Look at the thickness. Okay, look at the size comparison between the 8010. This knife actually carries better than the 8010.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. I don't know. The thinner profile, it's a little bit lighter. I feel like it carries a little bit better. Now, I would love to carry this every day, but I live in New York State, and I can't. So, would I love to being able to carry my buoys or this in my pocket? Yes, 100%. I love big knives as well. I love carrying, but again, we're not going to go back to that argument. But know your laws, guys.
Yeah. It's just like the same with anything. Now, I've got one more that I'll show you before we start. I know at some point we got to start wrapping it up.
Yes.
Here's one that I got. This is the one from Southern Grind. And honest to God, it's 14. I should have wrote the steel down. It's a really good steel, and this is before the buyout. I know Southern Grind's been sold. Trust me. I talk to one of the guys every day that used to work there. This knife has held up. I think I've had it right at 6, 7, 8 months. A lot of hard use on it. And again, they got their heat treat right. And aesthetically, I can show you a bunch of knives that I use, and you can tell I use this one. And I use this a lot. You can barely tell. So they've got their not only do they have their heat treating down, they've also had their dipping process down. They just hit home runs all the way around until they sold it. But just talking about the different steels and things like that, awesome knife, man.
Yeah.
So I think I think basically at the end of the day, it's personal preference. It's what job are you using it for, and what can you carry?
Right. That's kind of leads me into how we're going to close this. So if I had to ask you, if someone is shopping for a knife, and how did they decide, other than watching Choirboyz Cutlery and Donnie B all day and all the great reviewers out there, other than watching our videos, what would you recommend to them? Should they look at the manufacturer of the knives? Should they look at the reputation of the company? Should they look at specific steels? How would you recommend them approaching a certain knife? I know you answered a little bit already.
Honest to God, I think it's this. I think that if you're a guy who's always used a knife, it's always going to be a little easier. If you're someone who's never had to use a knife, a lot of people grow up like we down in the South, we take it for granted. Okay. There was a time I took pocket knives to school. You do that now, son, they put you under the jail.
Oh, God knows. Yeah.
But there was a time that you take a pocket knife. There were times that guns went, and this ain't a nostalgic thing. I'm leading to a point. You grew up using the tool.
Right.
If it was me and say you want to buy, you're just coming across this video and you want to buy your husband, you want to buy your wife, whatever, a gift, and you want it to be a knife, I'd say do your research on the company. I would not get tied up in steel. I wouldn't worry about the steel. Now, if your husband is an avid hunter or something like that, buy him a gift card and let him get what he wants. But I wouldn't worry about the steel. I would look at the reputation of the manufacturer, and I'd have me a price point. And I'd get my price point. I'd put that in because you can do that on Amazon, Smoky Mountain, Knife Center. It'll let you choose your price range. And I would go down and I would find a manufacturer and I'd look them up and look for the things that you look for in that manufacturer. I really would. That's how I would do it. And then I'd watch some videos on YouTube.
That's it. Yeah. And the budget, your budget is the budget that you're looking to spring for a particular knife, whether it be a gift or something for yourself or an add-on, is definitely going to be very important in where you're leading towards. I mean, if you're looking at a sub $100 price point, you're going to see certain steels that are always going to be available at the sub 100 price point. Does it mean that those steels are bad? No. I love this $40, little shit. It's not a little shit. It's a great knife. But, OS8 steel, I know what I need to do with it, but it works for me. Do I love my $200 8010? Absolutely. It really goes, there's certain knives and certain steels that are pretty much married to certain budgets.
Yeah.
They're looking to sell.
You could, for under, and I've had a lot of people ask me, and I get a lot more asking me all the time about certain knives and budgets and things like that. One thing This knife right here, the Bush Ranger from Cold Steel. Okay, it was a little over $100. It says 35 VNs, G10, it's all of the things. So budget is relative to what you have. And not everybody has $100 to spend on a knife. They don't. If you don't, I'd go with a buck 110. You know, I would go with an SE Avispa, which I'm sending yours out tomorrow. Since Joe had a bad experience with his first one, we bought one and we're sending it to New York to see how it plays out. And I want to say, I think I did the SK5 because I love SK5. And that's a steel we didn't really mention. I like the SK series of steels. It's the Japanese scale. But I would look at Buck. I would look at that SE Avispa.
Right.
You can get the SE Avispa in D2 for $50. You've got a ton of options out there. I seen a Gerber something the other day that Gideon's Tactical was showing. It was a huge knife and it was like $50. I mean, so do your research for sure. I just wouldn't, if it's a first time gift or something, or you're a first time knife buyer, unless you got money to burn, don't get caught up in the steel.
Right.
Research the company, look at your price point, and go from there.
Right.
And stay the hell away from online reviews when you get like Amazon and all that. Oh, this is screw all that.
No, you can't rely on that.
You don't want to do that.
You can't rely on that.
You know, that's how I would. Now, if you're one reason I want to say this, and we'll bring this thing, start bringing it to a close. One reason that I do the knife reviews the way that I do them, and I show you how the knife works, because we live in a day and age now where you can't walk in and touch anything anymore. Absolutely. You can to an extent, but there are so many high-end knife companies now, or companies where, you can go to Ace Hardware, and the Ace Hardware in Florida, the one 30 miles from my house, has the best knife selection in all of Florida. It seriously does, but that's not always the case. So the way I do my reviews, I try to do them so that you can see what the knife does. You can actually see somebody using the knife, good, bad, or otherwise. And that's why, too, I always say I'm a novice at best. So if I make a knife look good and you've got skills, that's why I like showing the knife. That personally, that's just the way I like doing it. And again, hopefully one day I'll have enough wisdom to sit there and be able to articulate enough and show you the knife. But until then, we're going to do our test and we're going to do our reviews.
Leading into that, first of all, Scab, I think you do a fine job in putting in the specs. And I think what your talk about in your videos with your knives, I think are the most important things that people need to know. I don't think we need to get into the properties and this compared to that. I think that you're pretty much getting to the point and you're giving us the information that we need. Now, going with the sword videos is the same thing. There's no way that you can get your hands on a katana or try it unless you go to China or Japan and go to one of their shops, and they have like a little place like in the back where you can kind of go in, hold the sword, and test it. But obviously, we're not going to be doing that.
That's few and far between, too,
that's why I think sword reviews are very important, because that's the only way you can physically see how it looks, how it feels, and get the opinion of the reviewer. So I second that as well. Yeah, that's why these reviews are important, because of the world that we live in and how things are distributed from, across the pond, and how we're not able to have actual stores we can walk into and test out and hold these, fine pieces of cutlery here. So very important. Great point there, Scott. Very good.
And the other side of that too, guys, is quality is quality. Okay. The Billy Waugh demo that I did, that knife retails about $4.95. I know that's expensive. I get it. I know not everybody can afford that. I get it. I understand that. But I also know that it's quality. I know that knife is going to last a lifetime if you maintain it.
Right.
Now, one video I got coming up, Joe, I bought a $5 knife from Home Depot. I bought a $5 knife. So we're going to do a $5 knife versus a $50 knife versus a $200+ knife.
That's
and
very interesting.
See the difference and see what it does. but there is a difference in quality. And I'll say this, for somebody like Joe who has a channel, he's trying to show you the quality of the sword. Yes, you can go get a cheap beater. You can get a cheap beater and get a knife. That's not the point. If you are a collector of knives, of swords, quality has to be taken into account. I can go right now, the Walmart knife I got, or the Home Depot knife I got for $5, yeah, I can stab you with it. I can do a lot of stuff with it. But if somebody comes in, I'm not going to show them the $5 knife. I'm going to show them the Medford or the Billy Waugh edition that Miss Claire has so generously given to me, right, that's on the way. There's a lot to be said for quality, and it cannot be overstated. That doesn't, listen, if you can't afford something, that's not a reflection of you. That's not a buy what you can buy.
Absolutely.
Wheel and deal, trade your way, or save your money.
Mm-hmm.
I've busted my damn nuts for almost 35 years on the books. People say, well, it must be nice. You're damn right it is, because I've worked hard for it. Now, if I work hard for something, I want quality.
Right.
I get the $5 knife any damn time I want. And that's just my little PSA there. One, never feel bad about what you have. Never. Use it, enjoy it, focus on it. But don't belittle something else because you haven't worked hard enough to attain it, or you don't think it's good enough. Remember, guys, this is all subjective and it's all opinion.
Right.
That's just my 2 cents. I love everybody. God knows I do. And Donnie, kill me with this lock. Lord have mercy. Anyway, that's my part. That's really all I got to say. I want to say this, and then I'm turning it over to Joe to wrap us up and sing us home. Put in the comments what you look for in a knife. Okay. And guys, look, I get it. I get it. I don't need the whole, I really just put what you look for in the knife. If you don't look for anything, don't put anything. And if you got some favorite steels, put them in there. We'll do another blade talk on this and put all the data together and just see what everybody come up with. And I love y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next video.
Guys, as with all our videos, it's not our Blade Talk videos, and the topics that we bring up are very vast topics, and there's never a one and done. I don't think we've ever done a one and done on any of our Blade Talks, because these topics can be picked up and followed along, even with guests that come on to the show. We can always revisit this stuff. So this is not an end result to this conversation. We want to continue this conversation with you guys on the comment section. We want to continue this conversation with any guests that are going to be coming on to Blade Talk. It's a very good topic, and it's, a lot of people wonder about it, and I'm hoping that the information that Scab and I had given you maybe gave you something that you didn't know about, or gave you a little bit more of a head start as far as how you should start shopping for your knives or buoys or swords or anything like that. So, I hope this was a great help to you guys. Scab, thank you for with me today. I enjoyed it very much as well. Guys, to all our hardcore subscribers that follow us on all our channels on Blade Talk, we thank you. We appreciate all the support you give us. If you are a passer buyer, guys, please subscribe to our channels. I'll put links to our channels. Please do not leave Blade Talk without looking at our description. I will put links to Steel Forge and Fart, which it's on my channel, but I'll put links to Choirboyz Cutlery. Please throw us some subs. We're looking to grow. Guys, the more you help us to grow, the more we're able to continue to give you quality content. So it's a give and take type of thing. So I'll close it off like this, guys. Do not forget our vets, as we mentioned on all our videos. We love you, vets. We love all of you guys. Thank you for all the support, and thank you for tuning into Blade Talk. And until next Blade Talk, we'll see you when we see you. Peace out, everybody.
Later.